What if the whispers of the past held the key to your very survival? I often ponder this question as I navigate the narrow cobblestone streets of Ravenswood, a town where shadows cling to the corners like secrets. It had been years since I first set foot in this place, a patchwork of history woven with the threads of something darker, something that has lingered long after the last candle was snuffed out. They say the old houses here breathe at night, their wooden frames creaking under the weight of forgotten memories and buried truths. But it wasn't until I stumbled upon the remnants of an ancient cult that I began to grasp the extent of Ravenswood's hidden horrors. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the crumbling facades of the buildings, I found myself drawn to the heart of the town, where the air thickened with an unsettling energy. It was in the town square, under the watchful gaze of a weathered statue of a man I could not name, that I first sensed something was amiss. The locals avoided eye contact, their conversations hushed, as if they feared the very words they spoke might summon something best left undisturbed. I could feel the weight of their glances, filled with a mix of pity and apprehension as I passed by. They must have sensed my outsider status, a fresh wound in their tightly knit community. But I was determined to uncover the truth. I had always been drawn to the enigmatic and the arcane, a trait that stemmed from my childhood. Growing up in a family that clung to the remnants of a long-lost lineage of fortune-tellers, I learned early on the power of stories and the scars they leave behind. My grandmother would often recount tales of the cursed relics that once adorned our family home, pieces that had been lost to time but whose malevolent influence lingered in the air. I had never believed her until I arrived in Ravenswood. This place felt like a living tapestry woven with threads of fate and fury. The dense fog that rolled in at dusk cloaked the town in an ethereal shroud, distorting the familiar into something grotesque. I could hear the distant tolling of bells, a somber reminder of the rituals that had been performed long before my arrival. It was not until I caught sight of the old church at the edge of town, its spire piercing the sky like a dagger, that I felt the first true stirrings of dread. The locals spoke in hushed tones about the unseen, a term that flitted between fear and reverence, and I knew I had to learn more. Then, on that fateful evening, something inexplicable happened. As I turned away from the church, a figure emerged from the shadows, a cloaked silhouette that seemed to glide rather than walk. My heart raced as I strained to catch a glimpse of their face, but the heavy hood concealed all but a wisp of pale skin. They beckoned to me with an outstretched hand, and in that moment, I was torn between the instinct to flee and the irresistible pull of curiosity. Perhaps it was fate, or perhaps it was the same darkness that had haunted my family for generations. But I felt a connection to this stranger that transcended words. As I hesitated, the figure whispered something that sent a chill down my spine. "They are watching." The weight of those words hung in the air, thickening the fog around us. I knew then that I had crossed a threshold, and there would be no turning back. Something ancient stirred beneath the surface of Ravenswood, and as night fell, I realized that the secrets of this town were more than mere echoes of the past. They were alive, waiting for someone to uncover them. As I stood frozen in the fog, the cloaked figure's words echoed in my mind. "They are watching." I felt an unsettling awareness settle over me, as if unseen eyes were peering from the shadows, scrutinizing my every move. In that moment, I realized that the quaint charm of Ravenswood masked a far more sinister reality. I took a cautious step toward the figure, compelled by a mixture of dread and fascination. "Who are you?" I managed to whisper, though my voice trembled. The figure lowered their hood, revealing a gaunt face framed by dark hair that seemed to absorb the very light around us. Their eyes, a piercing shade of gray, bore into mine with an intensity that made my heart race. "My name is Ilara," they said, their voice a haunting melody that resonated with the whispers of the night. "I've been waiting for you, but time is short. The unseen grow restless." "Unseen?" I echoed, my mind racing as I recalled the murmurs of the townsfolk. "What do you mean?" Ilara took a step closer, lowering her voice to a conspiratorial whisper. "There are forces in Ravenswood that are beyond your understanding. They feed on fear, on the secrets that this town has buried. You've come here seeking the truth, but you must tread carefully. The past has a way of ensnaring the unprepared." My pulse quickened as I struggled to process her words. The very air around us felt charged with an energy I couldn't name, a tangible sense of danger lurking just beyond the veil of the mundane. "What do you know about the cult?" I asked, the words spilling out before I could think better of it. "The one that—" "They worship the unseen," Ilara interrupted, her expression darkening. "And they still exist. They're more than a memory. They're a presence that lingers in the dark corners of this town, waiting for the right moment to reclaim what they lost. You've stirred something here, and now you must be prepared for the consequences." Before I could respond, a loud crash echoed through the square, shattering the heavy silence that enveloped us. I turned in alarm to see the church doors swing, open violently, revealing a figure clad in a long, tattered coat. The man's face was obscured by a tangle of matted hair, but there was a wildness in his eyes that sent a chill down my spine. "Run!" he shouted, his voice raw with desperation. "They're coming for you!" Ilara grabbed my arm, her grip vice-like. "We need to hide," she urged. The urgency in her voice propelled me into action. I followed her as she led me through the labyrinthine streets, dodging the flickering lamplights that seemed to pulse with a life of their own. As we ducked into an alleyway, I caught my breath, the weight of the moment crashing over me. What was that? I gasped, my mind reeling. "The townspeople are terrified," Ilara replied, her eyes darting around us as if expecting shadows to materialize into figures. "They know what lurks in the dark, but they refuse to speak of it. They believe that silence will protect them, but it only feeds the darkness." "Why me?" I pressed, desperation creeping into my voice. "Why did they come after me?" "Because you're here," Ilara said simply, her gaze locking onto mine. "You're a catalyst, a link to the past that they thought long buried. You must confront the truth before it consumes you." Just then, the sound of footsteps echoed in the alley, accompanied by soft, chanting voices that made my skin crawl. A wave of panic surged through me. I had come to Ravenswood seeking answers, but now I was ensnared in a web of secrets and shadows, and I had no idea how deep the darkness truly ran. Ilara leaned closer, her voice barely above a whisper. "We need to find the others. They can help us, but we must act quickly." "Others?" I asked, my mind racing. "There are those who still resist the unseen, who know the truth," she replied. "But they will not trust you easily. You must prove your intent." In that moment, I felt the weight of fate pressing down on my shoulders. My past, my bloodline, the whispers of my childhood, all were converging on this singular point in time. I was no longer just an outsider. I was now part of a story that was far from over, and the first chapter was about to unfold in ways I could never have imagined. As I pressed my back against the damp brick wall of the alley, my heart raced, with a mixture of fear and determination. Ilara's words echoed in my mind, but confusion tangled with urgency. "Prove my intent?" I murmured, half to myself. What did that even mean? Before Ilara could respond, the chanting grew louder, an eerie incantation that seemed to seep into my bones. I felt a shiver run down my spine, and for a fleeting moment, I questioned my own sanity. Was I really in Ravenswood, or was this some twisted dream? The fog thickened, wrapping around me like a shroud, and I fought against the rising tide of panic that threatened to drown me. "Ilara," I whispered, my voice trembling. What if I can't prove myself? What if I'm just imagining all of this? Her eyes softened for a brief instant, and I saw a flicker of understanding. "You must trust yourself. This is no illusion. The unseen thrive on doubt, on fear. They will twist your perceptions until you question everything, even your own sanity. But you are stronger than you think." I inhaled sharply, reminding myself of the reason I had come to this cursed town. I had come to uncover the truth about my family, about the secrets that had haunted my childhood. My parents had always whispered about Ravenswood, a place shrouded in mystery, a place they had left behind. They'd told me to forget, to move on. But I couldn't shake the feeling that my past was intricately tied to this town. And now I was standing at the epicenter of something dark and ancient. Suddenly, a memory crashed through the fog of my mind. My mother's frightened gaze as she clutched an old, dusty book. "They'll come for you too," she had said, her voice trembling. "Stay away from Ravenswood." "Wait," I said, my pulse quickening as I pieced together fragments of my history. My mother, she knew something. She was afraid of this place. What if the unseen are connected to my family? What if they're after me because of my bloodline? Ilara's expression hardened. That's exactly it. The unseen are not just after you. They want to reclaim what they lost. Your family is woven into their history, and that makes you a target. Before I could process this revelation, the footsteps echoed closer, accompanied by the sound of rustling fabric. Panic surged again, and I clutched Ilara's arm as if she were my lifeline. "What do we do?" "We find the others," she insisted, her voice steady despite the chaos around us. "We need to uncover the truth before it's too late. But first, you must remember everything. There are pieces of your past that can help us." Just then, a figure emerged from the shadows, their face obscured by the fog. My heart dropped as I recognized the familiar outline. It was the wild-eyed man from the church, but he was not alone. A group of hooded figures flanked him, their intentions unreadable. The tension in the alley thickened, and I felt the weight of my ancestry pressing down on me like a heavy cloak. "Who are you?" I shouted, my voice trembling but defiant. He stepped forward, pulling back his hood to reveal a familiar face, one I hadn't seen in years. "You don't remember me, do you?" he asked, a smirk tugging at his lips. "But I've always been watching you, waiting for the right moment to strike." The world around me tilted as memories I had buried deep surged to the surface. I had thought my past was behind me, but now it seemed more tangled than I could have ever imagined. The unseen were not just a distant threat. They were part of my very existence, and the truth was about to unravel in ways that would change everything. As the wild-eyed man stepped closer, the shadows behind him shifted, revealing the hooded figures, their faces obscured, yet their presence unmistakably threatening. My heart raced as I struggled to reconcile the familiar features of the man before me with the distant memories that flickered like dying embers in my mind. "Who are you?" I repeated, my voice barely above a whisper, grappling with the rising tide of fear and anger. "Gabriel," he said, his voice low and taunting. "Your long-lost cousin. You may not remember me, but I remember you. I've seen the way they look at you, how they've kept you safe from the truth. But here, in Ravenswood, the truth has teeth and it's hungry." My breath hitched as the words sunk in. Gabriel. I had often heard my mother's whispers about family lost to the shadows, but she had never mentioned him by name. The weight of his presence pressed down on me, a physical reminder of the secrets I was meant to forget. "You're one of them," I accused, the realization igniting a spark of anger within me. "You're part of the unseen." He laughed, a sound that echoed sharply against the damp walls of the alley. part of? No, dear cousin. I am the unseen. I've embraced what our family feared. I've come to reclaim what you've kept hidden. You don't know the power you possess, but I do. And I will use it to bring them all back. Use me? I felt Ilara's grip tighten on my arm, her presence grounding me. She was my anchor in this storm of revelations. You won't get away with this, Gabriel. I won't let you. He stepped closer, a sinister smile creeping across his face. But you don't have a choice, do you? You're already entangled in this web, just like the rest of your family. Suddenly, the chanting grew louder, vibrating through the air, and the hooded figures closed in around us, their intentions clear. I could feel the tension mounting, a palpable force that threatened to explode. I glanced at Ilara, who nodded, her resolve shining through the fear in her eyes. "We need to fight back," she urged. "You have the strength within you. Remember." A surge of energy coursed through me as I recalled the stories my mother had shared, the tales of our ancestors who had faced the unseen with bravery and cunning. Fueled by that memory, I stepped forward, standing my ground against Gabriel and his followers. "I won't be a pawn in your game. You're wrong about me. I am not afraid anymore." Gabriel's eyes flickered with surprise, and for a heartbeat, I saw the uncertainty in him. The air crackled with tension as the chanting reached a fever pitch, the figures closing in as if sensing my defiance. It was now or never. "Ilara!" I shouted. "We have to harness whatever power is left in me, together!" In that moment, I felt the connection between us strengthen, a bond forged in the crucible of fear and determination. The fog around us seemed to lift slightly, revealing a glimpse of the truth I had long sought. The shadows whispered secrets, and I understood that this confrontation was not just about survival. It was about reclaiming my identity. With a deep breath, I focused on the energy thrumming within me, drawing on the legacy of my bloodline. "If you want me, you'll have to fight for it," I declared, my voice steady and unwavering. The figures moved, their intentions shifting in an instant, but I stood firm, ready to confront the darkness that threatened to consume me. The choice was clear. I could either succumb to the shadows or embrace the light within me. And in that decisive moment, I chose to fight, not just for my life, but for the truth that had been buried for too long. As I gathered my strength, I could feel the tide turning. The next chapter of my story was about to unfold, and I was determined to seize it. As the shadows surged around me, I felt the weight of my family's legacy press down like a storm cloud ready to burst. The air crackled with energy, and I could almost taste the fear mingled with defiance. My heart raced, pounding against my ribs as I channeled every ounce of power I had inherited, every story my mother had whispered to me about our lineage. With Ilara by my side, I unleashed a pulse of light that cut through the encroaching darkness. It was exhilarating and terrifying all at once. The hooded figures recoiled, their chants faltering, and for a brief moment, I felt invincible. But Gabriel, driven by a manic intensity, surged forward, his eyes wild with fury. "You think you can defy me? You're just like the others, weak!" I braced myself as he lunged, and the force of our clash sent shockwaves through the alley, reverberating off the brick walls. I staggered back, pain shooting through my shoulder as I collided with the cold stone. The world spun around me, and for a fleeting second, I feared I might lose everything: my newfound strength, my resolve, and even Ilara. But I couldn't let that happen. With a fierce determination, I pushed myself to my feet, feeling the warmth of Ilara's hand on my back, urging me forward. "You're stronger than this," she shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos. It gave me the clarity I needed. I had to finish this. Drawing on that connection, I focused my energy once more, channeling the essence of my ancestors. A brilliant light erupted from my core, expanding outward, illuminating the alley like a dawn breaking over a dark horizon. The hooded figures shrieked, their forms flickering as if caught in a tempest, and Gabriel was thrown back against the wall, his expression morphing from rage to fear. As the light engulfed them, I felt something shift within me. A release of pent-up energy, a cleansing of the darkness that had seeped into my very being. When the last of the shadows dissipated, I collapsed to my knees, breathless and battered, but alive. Alara knelt beside me, her face etched with concern, yet pride shone in her eyes. "You did it. But at what cost?" she murmured, brushing a hand across my cheek. I winced at the ache in my shoulder, realizing I bore more than just physical scars. The emotional weight of this confrontation would linger like an unwelcome ghost. As we gathered ourselves, the remnants of the unseen began to scatter, retreating into the depths of Ravenswood. However, I couldn't shake the sense that this was only a temporary victory. I glanced at Gabriel, who lay crumpled on the ground, an enigmatic smirk creeping across his face. "You may have won today, but the truth is a relentless beast. It will come for you again," he rasped. His words hung heavily in the air, a dark promise that sent a shiver down my spine. What other secrets lay buried in my family's past? What other forces were at play in Ravenswood? As I pulled myself back to my feet, I could see Alara's worry mirrored in the expressions of the few remaining hooded figures. They had witnessed my power, and I could sense their allegiance shifting. Would they be allies or foes in the battles to come? Just then, a figure emerged from the shadows, a woman with an aura that felt both familiar and foreign. She stepped forward, her gaze piercing. "You're not the only one with a legacy, Gabriel," she said, her voice steady. "And you're not the only one who knows the truth." My heart raced anew as I realized that the mysteries of Ravenswood were far from over. This confrontation had merely scratched the surface of a deeper, more intricate web of secrets, and I was determined to uncover every last one. With a final glance at Alara, I nodded, knowing that together we would face whatever lay ahead. The journey was just beginning, and I was ready to reclaim my story. As I stood there, the weight of the moment pressed down on me, mingling with the remnants of the battle. The woman who had stepped from the shadows stared at Gabriel with a knowing gaze, her presence sending a chill through my bones. "You're not the only one with a legacy," she repeated, her voice laced with an ominous authority. I felt the air shift, a tangible tension coiling around us like a serpent ready to strike. "Who are you?" I demanded, my voice steadier than I felt. The darkness that had been vanquished moments before seemed to swell back, eager to reclaim its lost ground. Gabriel, still crumpled against the wall, flicked his gaze between us, a twisted smile creeping onto his lips. "You really don't understand, do you?" the woman replied, her eyes glistening with an unsettling light. "Your victory today was merely a delay, a cruel joke played by fate. The truth of your lineage is far more terrifying than you can imagine." I felt a shudder run through me as a sudden vision enveloped my mind, a dark ritual, screams echoing in the shadows, faces twisted in agony. I gasped, clutching my head as the memories flooded in, revealing a lineage not of heroes, but of darkness and despair. My throat tightened, and I realized I was standing on the precipice of a truth that could consume me whole. "Join us, or perish," the woman hissed, her voice a sinister whisper that echoed in the recesses of my thoughts. The shadows around us swirled with intent, and I felt the grip of something ancient and malevolent tugging at my very essence. I glanced back at Alara, her face pale, eyes wide with fear. In that moment, I understood the weight of my family's legacy, one that could either elevate me or drag me into a pit of eternal darkness. Suddenly, the shadows converged, and a scream erupted from my lips as the darkness surged forth, wrapping around me like chains. I was being drawn into the abyss, into a fate I had tried so desperately to escape. As the light faded and the shadows consumed me, I realized I was no longer the hunter, but the hunted, trapped in a labyrinth of my own making. The last thing I heard was the woman's laughter, echoing in the void, a chilling reminder that the true battle had only just begun. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this. Share with your friends so they can also embark on this mystery-filled adventure. Leave a comment below telling us your favorite part or what kind of ending you'd like to see in a future story.